Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is at the Milwaukee Public Library. We're interviewing candidates in the 2014 election. We're interviewing Vince Trovato. He's from Waukesha. He's a Republican candidate in the 97th Assembly District. Vince, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you for having me.
Just this note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Vince, I know you've been an aide in the Capitol, but I also know you just got back from South Sudan. So give me the short version of your bio and why you're running, please.
Sure. South Sudan was a very interesting experience. I was there with the International Republican Institute. Was there working with political parties across the political spectrum there. They've got 24 or 25 different parties in South Sudan, and my job was to work with 23 of them. So it's a very chaotic situation right now on the ground in South Sudan and throughout East Africa, but hopefully we did some good to try to create a little bit more stability and peace in that
Well, how does Wisconsin politics compare to South Sudan?
You know, people have asked me that before. I do think back to my time working as a legislative aide and policy advisor back during the Act 10 days in 2011, so there are some similarities of craziness levels, I would say.
Well, let's talk about Act 10. Was it good public policy for Wisconsin, Vince?
It was, yes. I'm a supporter of Act 10, and I say that coming from a family of teachers. My mom's a teacher, my sister's a teacher, my sister-in-law's a teacher. But
those make for some interesting family reunions.
Well, they're Republican teachers, but and there are more out there than you might think. But you know, Act 10 is something that personally affected me as well. By working at the state capitol at that time, we all had to pay more for our insurance. We had less coming in on our paychecks. So it's something that I can speak to from having gone through it personally, but I do think it was necessary to balance the state's budget.
Part of the Act 10 debate, was involved K-12. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about vouchers and choice. As you know, the current budget took vouchers statewide, put an enrollment cap of 1,000. If you're in the Assembly, what are you going to vote? How would you vote on the future of choice and vouchers for the next biennial budget? Well,
look, I think it's really important to remember that it's essential that we involve parents in the decisions for their kids, to bring them into the part of the equation and into that discussion. Unfortunately, here in Milwaukee, MPS, I think, is an example of why we might need school vouchers and school choice to be increased rather than decreased. I am fortunate, coming from Waukesha, that we have an outstanding school system there in the public schools, so it's not necessarily as big of an issue in the 97th Assembly District, but statewide I'm absolutely supportive of vouchers.
In the next budget, would you vote to any limits on vouchers statewide?
I'd have to look into the numbers a little bit more before I would say yes or no on that, but just generally speaking, I am supportive of vouchers, especially in the school districts that need it the most. A
major issue still in the Capitol is Common Core. How do you feel about those standards?
Talking to teachers and students about the Common Core, I've heard mixed reviews, and I haven't taken a position on that yet. Common Core, I think, needs to be evaluated in terms of, number one, how it's affecting the students, making sure that they are learning, that the curriculum is continuously updated. I do think that that's important, and those standards were there for a reason. That being said, there seem to be a lot of problems right now with Common Core, so I'm looking at that issue, and I do think it's a very important policy point here in the next session.
Healthcare, as you know, Governor Walker and the leaders of the Senate and the Assembly told the feds, "Thank you for offering us money to expand MA benefits. Thanks, but no thanks." Wise or unwise choice?
I think it was a wise choice. I think that we need to be very careful in accepting federal dollars that come with strings attached 99% of the time, including with the Affordable Care Act. I support the governor's decision with that.
As a former aide to an assistant assembly leader, you work some of these issues. Let me ask you about transportation funding. Projected $650 million shortfall in the next DOT budget for biennial 2015-2017. Do we delay some of these projects? Do we raise taxes? Or how do you fill that gap?
I am not supportive of raising taxes. I think that our state needs to continue to look at other options. Maybe it comes from other areas of spending in state government. Maybe it does mean that certain projects are delayed. We do need good roads to get our goods and services to market. That's very true. So as a person who's very supportive of our business community, I do think that having good roads is essential, but perhaps we could space this out a little bit in order to make up some of that shortfall.
So you would be in favor of delaying the widening of the interstate between Madison and Illinois, things like that?
Not necessarily. I think that it's trying to look at not just the feasibility of these ideas, but how we can bring in money from other areas of state government at this point. Okay. So first I would look into those options instead. I'm
asking all candidates this because of the timeliness, your reaction and Judge Crabb's reaction on same-sex marriages?
I think it was highly politicized. Unfortunately, I strongly support J.B. Van Hollen taking a wait-and-see attitude with certain aspects of this case. I think that it's really important that we let the judicial system play itself out, that we're not politicizing this decision, and that we're waiting. I don't think that we should be rushing into issuing licenses. We had county clerks across the state that were issuing licenses before the judicial process had truly played itself out, and I think that that's an example of playing politics instead of looking at the rule of law and order.
Your personal position on same-sex marriage?
I support marriage between a man and a woman. That's not to say that I'd be in favor of discriminating against any homosexual couples, but I do support marriage between a man and a woman.
Two candidates for Attorney General say first offense drunken driving should be a crime. Your position?
I think it's okay where it is right now. I don't support an easing of any of the penalties. Wisconsin, unfortunately, has a culture and a history that has a lot of drunk driving issues, and I do think that we need to be looking at ways to try to decrease people from getting one, and how to increase the abilities of our law enforcement across the state to keep people from getting the second and the third, which seems to be a growing problem. So I would say that we need stiffer penalties after the second OWI. The
minimum wage is being debated in Madison and Washington. Should it be increased?
No, I'm not in favor of an artificial increase to minimum wage. I think that is it's an artificial way to try to pump money into the economy. I don't think that it's going to work, and I think that it would backfire on for what the supporters of minimum wage are arguing that it would do. I think that entry-level jobs are just that. In a good way, I hope that people can use those as starting points to build and to grow as an individual, so that they can increase their personal wealth. But it's not to say that you should be doing a minimum wage job for the rest of your life. It's saying this is a good learning experience to go on and do other jobs in the sectors across our economy.
Any other major campaign issues that are very important to you that I haven't asked about, Vince?
Well, I think just generally speaking, we need to continue to look at ways to curb spending. I am a fiscal conservative first and foremost, so I want to continue to look at ways that we can help our taxpayers across the state, help our small business owners. One thing that I do think is not being talked about as much across the state, and it should be talked about more, is how to increase Wisconsin's abilities to trade internationally. I think that the governor has done a good job in promoting trade missions. I know that he's gone to China. I know that we have trade missions that are sent out to other countries around the world. But having spent a lot of time abroad, I can tell you that we're not winning that battle yet, and I would like to do more to help Wisconsin to compete internationally and to help our businesses grow, and I think it could be a real catalyst to jumpstart our economy back here at home, an economy that unfortunately is still dealing with many effects from the recession that has not ended yet.
The open seat in the 97th has attracted quite a crowd. Mm-hmm. Do you want to highlight any differences between you and your quite a few opponents in the primary?
Sure, absolutely. I really respect all the people that are in this race. I think that everyone has good intentions, and there seems to be a good slate of candidates. Some of the differences, though, about myself compared to them is having that experience in the Capitol. None of my opponents have that experience, and I think that it will make a difference in being able to come into the office on day one, be ready to pursue legislation, which will be a benefit to the people in the 97th, be ready to lead on some of these issues across the state. One other issue, one other difference I should say between myself and the other candidates is that I've spent my entire life in Waukesha. I grew up in the area. I'm a product of the local school system, very proudly. Graduated from high school in the district, went to middle school and elementary school in the district as well, so I have long and deep ties to this community. My mom's been a teacher in the area for 30 years in the same school district in Waukesha. My father served on the park board there. My grandparents came to Waukesha during the Great Depression in the 1930s, so I'm a third generation resident of the district, and I do think that those ties really do matter to people.
Thank you. Vince Trovato is a Republican from Waukesha, running for the 97th Assembly District. The primary is August 12th. Vince, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.